All right, guys, thanks for tuning in to this week's meal prep. This is just a quick shot of all the meals that you're going to be making if you choose to make this meal prep, but these are all the meals that I made. So I will go over them, but first, I got to get all of the groceries. Now, you guys, again, let me know your feedback. If you like this little GoPro shot, just kind of all the groceries that I'm getting, if it's helpful, if it's not helpful, just let me know, because I don't have to include it, but I think it's kind of just a little more interesting to see. So yeah, just let me know your feedback. But again, this week is pretty basic. It is a little bit more variety than last week because I am doing some ground turkey and some ground beef, but for the most part, it's pretty simple again. And the reason I'm doing that is because, my bulk, again, I wasn't gaining the weight I wanted to, but now I am. I gained like 1.5 pounds last week, so it's going well. But again, obviously, if you couldn't see all the groceries here, you can see them all in the description. Just check them out. I'm going to start by rinsing the red potatoes. I don't need to use a potato scrubber when it comes to the red potatoes because I like the skin. Also, you could peel the skin off if you really wanted to, but I like the way the skin of these red potatoes and most potatoes taste, so I generally leave the skin on. But then I just cut it in half again, and then cut it into small cubes. Again, you want to try to make them all about the same size, because if you don't, then some are going to cook more thoroughly than others, and you're going to have a hard potato and you're going to have more done potatoes. So just try to get them close to all the same when it comes to cutting them. And then I'm going to season them pretty simple. I'm just going to use some extra virgin olive oil. Now, again, this is where you guys can add any seasonings you want, but I go with extra virgin olive oil. Then I add some garlic. I like garlic on the red potatoes. I think it tastes good. And then I'm going to add some sea salt. You could use regular salt as well. And then I'm going to use pepper. Again, I know this is repetitive, but I'm going to say it. You guys can use any seasonings you would like. And then I'm just going to pop those in the oven at 400 degrees for about 50 minutes to an hour, but I'm going to broil them for the last 10 minutes to get a nice little crisp on them. Then I'm going to move on to the broccoli, and I know I do broccoli all the time, but that's just because I love the way broccoli tastes baked in the oven. I think it's amazing. So I just started off by rinsing it, and then I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to use the stalk as well. Again, a subscriber mentioned I can use the stalk, and the stalk tastes really good, so I recommend using it as well. And then, just cut it into smaller pieces. Same concept here, about the same size, but, the broccoli, it's much easier to cook. It only takes about 12 to 15 minutes. But then seasoning-wise, I'm just going to use extra virgin olive oil, salt, and then a little bit of Mrs. Dash Italian seasoning. So, just my preference. And I really like the way extra virgin olive oil, I like the way extra virgin olive oil tastes. So that's why I always use it. I know I get questions on that a lot as well. And then I'm going to bake that at 400 for about 12 to 15 minutes. Then I'm going to move on to the ground turkey, ground beef. So I have 2 pounds of ground turkey and 1 pound of the ground beef. And then I have extra virgin olive oil. And then I'm using some Flavor God seasoning. Everything, and then everything spicy. I like the Flavor God seasonings. You can add whatever seasoning you would like. I know I say it every single time, but it's just because you can. You can do whatever you want. I like it pretty simple, pretty basic. It's not because I'm basic, it's just because I like the way that generally the food tastes without a lot of seasoning on it. But, after about 12 to 15 minutes-ish, that will be done. You really just want to make sure there's no pink left in the meat and the ground turkey, ground beef mix. And, I just move it into a bowl, and then I repeat for the other sets because I did it twice, or I did it 2 more times. Then I move on to the chicken. I'm going to cook it on the skillet or the griddle this week, so I just cut it in half, and then I cut it into smaller chunks. Same thing as the potatoes and the broccoli. You want to cut it about the same just so it cooks evenly. And then I'm going to take some Mrs. Dash marinade, some sweet teriyaki, and you could also use a plastic bag. Thinking back on it now, I probably should have used a plastic bag and put it in there and then put the marinade, but I just used these tin pans. So I just put it in the tin pans, mix it around, Made sure it all got coated, let it sit in the fridge for like a half hour. The longer you let it sit, the more it will it can marinate, but I just don't have that time. I don't want to let it sit for 24 hours. So I just let it sit for like 30 minutes and throw it on the griddle, let it cook for about 12 to 15 minutes. It just depends on how hot your griddle runs. I set mine to like sear, and then, I just kind of flip it every once in a while. Once it has a nice crisp on it, once it gets cooked, and then take it off and repeat for the amount of chicken that I have. And then I'm gonna take some rice and put it in my rice cooker, add water, shut it, turn it on, and let it go. The rice cooker is amazing. I recommend getting one. It makes my life so much easier. But then for 10 meals, I'm gonna measure out 2/3 cup of rice for each meal. And this is for myself as well as Alex. Again, I know I say this in other meal prep videos, but I also prep for Alex. I prep for somebody else. So, you wouldn't want to buy as much food as I'm buying unless you're prepping for 2 people. I hope that doesn't confuse you in any way. But then I'm going to take about 7 ounces of the ground beef, ground turkey mix and add it to each meal. Now, when it comes to calculating the macros, I just kind of take, 5 ounces or 6 ounces, about 5 ounces of the ground turkey. And then I take 2 ounces to 1 ounce of the ground beef. And then I put it in MyFitnessPal and it spits it out, and that's how I calculate it. It might not be perfect, I've said it before, but it's gonna be close. I'm not competing, I'm not, doing a show. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but it's gonna be a very, very, very close number. So that's what more so matters to me, is that it's very close. And then I'm gonna add about a cup of broccoli to each of these meals, and that will be it for this meal. So I'm actually going to measure out 10 ounces of red potato for myself for this meal. And then for the other meals on the left-hand side, the 3 compartment meals are Alex's. He's going to get about 8 ounces of red potato for each meal. I just kind of pull back on his carbs a little bit because he gets more carbs throughout the day. He eats, candy sometimes and some other things where he gets carbs. So I pull back on his carbs a little bit and I give myself a little bit more. And then I'm gonna move on to the chicken, and I'm gonna do 7 to 8 ounces of chicken per meal. Again, people ask me, should you weigh it raw? Should you weigh it cooked? Ideally, you would weigh it all raw, but when you cook this much in bulk, I'm not gonna weigh every piece raw and then, cook each piece separately and put it in its own meal. That would just take forever. So I do it this way. When I calculate it on MyFitnessPal, I use a cooked chicken breast, so that's how I also factor that. May not be perfect, but it's gonna be close. You get the drift. Then I'm gonna add another cup of broccoli to each of these meals, and then they're done. And then I have 1 more meal left. I actually prepped 3 meals for myself and 2 meals for Alex, so it's a total of 25 meals. I'm gonna measure out about 6 to 8 ounces of the red potatoes, and this is for like lunch too. So I have a lunch 2, and a dinner, and then obviously eat many more calories throughout the day, but you'll have to watch a full day of eating video, which I will be doing, to see where I get all my other calories. That word trip me up. But then I'm gonna measure out another 7 to 8 ounces of the ground beef, ground turkey mix and add it to this meal. And then once I'm done with the ground turkey, ground beef mix, it's time to add the broccoli. Come on, let's go. I'm actually watching this as I'm commentating on it. But then I'm gonna add another cup of the broccoli to this meal. And that is it. I did have a little bit of leftovers, which I can, eat throughout the week. And then here's a shot of all the meals. You can see all the macros in the description, so make sure to check that out. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to stick around because you'll see some of the preps that you guys sent me. And I hope you enjoyed.